Hello, Heidi. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. We're glad to have you here. So let's just go ahead and get started. The tonight's topic is, how to develop a healthy mental edge in relationship issues. So let's kind of start out on the negative end of things. What are some of the unhelpful types of attitudes that hinder romantic success?
I love starting out with this question because it's something that everyone needs to get very clear about with themselves, because once you understand what doesn't work, then you can know how to correct and fix things. So one of the top mistakes that I find people make is they depend on the other person to make them feel better. Or
Right.
they depend on the other person to be that right person, and then everything is okay. It's kind of like the same mentality of trying to lose weight, that if I lose weight, then I'll be happy, when that's not the core root cause that is of the unhappiness. So that's a very important mindset to have when you're in a relationship, that you have to be your own source of happiness, and you don't depend on anybody else to make you feel better.
So this is sort of
Yeah.
this is sort of like a fundamental, like a very basic type of a good way to start out. And if I don't do this, then I might suffer some ill effects later in the relationship, or I might not get my loved one's interest or something of that nature. So these are the basics.
Yeah, it's called the external locus of control in the field of psychology, where it's depending on the other person to define your self-esteem. And we all know that life is quite the adventure. So there's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of disappointment. So if every time there's disappointment, or we don't get what it is that we need because someone else is just being human, and if that ends up destroying our self-esteem and we don't know who we are anymore, then who are you? If you're constantly depending on everybody else to make sure your world is okay, that's a very unstable foundation.
Well, I would have to agree. What interests me is that a lot of times I get people who seek me out, and ordinarily they're very high achievers, but they're having a problem in their romance. It's like their judgment gets clouded. What could be responsible for that clouding of what could otherwise be a very good judgment?
Yeah, this is actually a real common one as well, because clouding of judgment really happens because there's some part of us that is needing attention or affection or that connection with that person more than what we really know is what is best for us. So it's another set of needs. Like, I know I've been up and down in the dating world, and there have been times where I have felt myself actually liking and being attracted to men that would normally not be the type I would be attracted to, but the source of that is coming from a lot of scarcity. Like, I might be under extra stress at that time, or I might have gotten in a fight with somebody, and so I'm looking for attention and affection, and it feels like that. It really feels like I'm attracted to the guy, but it's an attraction that's coming from a place that's very out of balance.
Mhm.
So judgment gets very clouded.
So, well, much better might be to take that external control and put it inside of myself, and then perhaps attract a more appropriate partner. So that would be one way to reverse that pattern, or would you say, or am I wrong?
Yeah, that's actually the opposite. It's called the internal locus of control, and it's much more adult-like mentality. So one question that I always ask myself, and I encourage others to ask this question, is what is it that the other person is doing for me that I am not doing for myself?
Uh-huh.
And when you can answer that question, it brings the focus back to you and teaches you that skill set about learning how to take care of yourself when nobody else can do it for you. Because I have an amazing skill set at that. I know that even when I do attract that man that is going to have a long sustainability with me, he's going to disappoint me. He's not going to be there for me a lot of times. There are going to be moments where I really am all by myself, and that's okay. That's just part of life. I have to know how to take care of that.
Yes,
So it's
I
a great
see.
time when you're single. It's an amazing time to develop that skill set.
When you're single, yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of problem areas I find in my work is, someone will seek me out and they got a situation and they're moving very quickly. And it makes me curious is because it's difficult to maintain a mental edge when, you're feeling this force that's causing you to go fast. What would you say for those of us maybe who feel this urge to go too fast and thus maybe compromise our mental power, our mental ability to maintain that,
Yeah.
that edge, because we rush. Why do
Well,
we rush?
yeah, no, again, anytime that you are feeling any type of need to move faster, there's a panic, there's an urgency, anything like that is a symptom of you not being centered. So I know that I attract the best experiences when I just feel calm inside. I'm peaceful, I'm grounded. Whether or not that person in front of me chooses me or not, it really is okay because I take care of myself. But it's in those times, like I said before, that I might be under extra stress or may have dealt with a little bit more rejection than normal, that I start to feel that need in me. I need to go connect with someone. And there's an urgency, there's a quickness to it, that again is more external locus of control driving your need to find someone else to make you feel better. And it's tempting. And yes, many times I have done that. And there are always consequences, and it's okay. It's part of how I have learned. I've been in enough pain to where I have sat myself down and talked to a lot of different healers, developed skill sets so that now when I head into that pattern, I know how to pull myself right back to the center because I just don't want to play that game anymore. But you have to be in enough pain to want to do the work to figure out how to get yourself back in alignment.
So it sounds to me like you kind of got to suffer a little bit, got to get beat up a little bit. And, for those of us listening to whom that's already happened, then the important thing is to learn from that and take the appropriate measures and slow things down a little bit. That's one good step to constructing the proper mental edge. Let's talk for a bit, Heidi, about certain special interest cases, certain very tricky cases. I call them undefined relationships. And one manifestation of the undefined relationship is when partner A lives in San Francisco and partner B lives in Toronto, or partner B is just moving very slowly, just taking his or her time and not reacting very enthusiastically to the relationship. So in both instances, it seems to me the relationship is undefined. It's foggy. It's in a gray area. And this is an irritant to a lot of people. How does the concept of mental discipline and mental self-control and, getting happiness out of my love life, how does that apply to this sort of undefined relationship?
Well, anytime that there is a confusion and you don't feel like you're on the same page as someone, you have to communicate. I know so many people, goodness, there's so much advice out there about, don't confront, especially if things are newer, if you're just meeting somebody or just getting to know someone, people are really afraid to just be honest. So I personally, I need to know, like, if I am heading forward with someone and I'm not sensing that we are on the same page, I approach the situation with a curiosity. Curiosity is a great way to have some amazing conversations to get clarity. So I enter the situation with wondering, what the heck is going on? Like, how come you behave this way or you say things this way? But I preface it with, I'm curious. I would love to get to know you a little bit better, and I'm sensing these kinds of responses and reactions. How should I interpret that? Like, what does that mean for you? And it's a great just conversation of getting to know each other. And I will tell you, yes, I've done that many times, and it has scared people away. Like, I've had a lot of guys feel that it was too much for them to deal with. But for me, I need to know that information much sooner than later, because that instantly tells me that this person is not going to be a good match for me, and that's okay. I'd rather know that sooner than later.
I like that because, for one thing, I think curiosity is an important tool in research and gathering information. And I think that these sort of undefined relationships suffer from faults of information, not having enough information about the partner. And your technique of using curiosity to sort of shortcut this process and find out exactly what you need to know, I think is definitely very important. Since we're sort of in the area of how, what happens when things go bad, here's another very common situation from my case files. Let's say that Jethro and Jane have been married for 23 years, and Jethro gets into a midlife crisis, and he starts shacking up with someone 20 years younger than he is. Okay, now, Jane usually calls me up, understandably upset, and my question for you is there any attitude, or is there anything Jane could have done to prepared for this moment? And B, what, if anything, can Jane do to get Jethro back? And finally, C, should Jane even want Jethro back?
That's the question. Yeah, I know. That's a hard question for a lot of people. Yeah, cheating. It's so sad. I would say probably 99.9% of the people that I work with have experienced that at least once in their life. And it's sad that I'm hearing it happening more and more and more, even at junior high school age.
Oh my goodness.
So it's I know, it's a sad dynamic. Cheating has a lot of different dynamics that influence somebody into making a decision outside of their integrity. Jane, her responsibility is, here comes that curious part again. I encourage people, I don't care if you've been married 40 years, if you wake up every single day with a mindset of, I would love to learn something new about my partner today. I wonder what is something new that I might be able to see about them. If you have that mentality of curiosity where nobody really knows your partner fully and completely, because we're not in each other's heads. So if you always leave that space of wondering what are some new things you could learn about them, then it manifests a type of attitude where the person you're connected to feels like you really want to know them. There's not a complacency. So curiosity can obviously go into many categories of sexuality, of communication, taking seminars every once in a while to learn new skills. I mean, relationships are limitless. So I have found that people that really stick together well, even after 40 years, there is still a healthy bond. Their energy is very fresh and it's very new, and they explore life with their partner in many different ways. Another aspect of cheating, oh my gosh, this is a big one. Stress. John Gottman is a psychiatrist that did the largest study on the face of this earth so far. It was a 20-year study looking at what makes a relationship work longer than 20 years. And there were several components that he was able to identify that were non-negotiable components, that these had to exist if a relationship was going to last and work, not just be boring and be married 50 years, but vibrant. And one of those components is when you are under stress, that the couple treats each other with respect and honor. And I find that most people that have been cheated on, there's an underlying lack of safety, underlying root cause of their needs not being met, underlying lack of trust with each other. And a lot of that ferments from the place of stress and how they communicate and treat each other when things are not so good.
Right. So maybe.
And that, honestly, that essentially starts with even yourself. Like, I have a rule, and it's on my practice all the time. I don't care how upset I am. I don't care if you said something that completely defamed me and ruined my life. My rule is that I do no harm. Do not cause harm to somebody else on purpose. You know, have an honor and respect for the spirit and the person that's in front of you. And then when you offer that to someone else, it really creates a space to receive that back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you
and so
say
when
that?
needs are not met, cheating happens, essentially.
Well, would you say that perhaps one of Jane's mistakes may have been that she became complacent toward Jethro and didn't allow herself to be curious towards him and to learn more about him as he evolved through the years, and thus and also I'm thinking that maybe Jane divested herself of any kind of radar, any ability to pick up on Jethro when he's drifting too far away from where he
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah, there really are so many patterns, so many people, both men and women, when I'm helping them through scenarios like this. Hindsight 2020, they're looking back going, I saw this coming. I saw this coming. But in the moment, they weren't awake enough, curious enough, interested enough to pay attention to any of that. And, you know, it's obviously both sides. You know, if the person who is cheating, they might have poor impulse control. They may not be very good at communicating and getting their needs met. So they obviously have a responsibility in making a decision like that. So it's definitely a two-way street.
Yeah, it's that's one thing I like about this approach is that it embraces personal responsibility. You know, what can I do to get a
Mm-hmm.
better result? And you know, I have to just say that in cases of the especially troubling relationships, I cannot overemphasize what having a mental edge will do when it comes to, I guess, scouting out problems before they become terrible, terrible problems. I think that could be one of the bigger advantages of having increased sensitivity and increased self-awareness is that, it'll allow you to separate the wheat from the chaff very early on. Before perhaps you get attached to an abuser or somebody like that. So what are your thoughts, Heidi, about developing that mental edge, cultivating your mental powers and strength in a prophylactic way, in a way to sort of as a radar or a force field, to weed out all of those, and they're probably going to be the majority of them who don't fit the bill and who lack what it takes to make you happy.
Yeah, this is such a good question. This is probably my favorite part is coaching people in the process of dating because it's so exciting. Okay, so first, you have to really get familiar with symptoms and behavior of people. So, for example, I watch someone in the beginning. I look at their impulse control abilities. This is a symptom. If a person does not have very good impulse control, even if it might be just with eating, let's say they overeat, even they may undereat, but there's an impulse impulse control is a very childlike energy, and a lot of that can come from past, wounded, challenging experiences. So I watch how someone behaves in their life with their money, with how they take care of themselves. Do they have addictive behaviors? And let me just preface all of this with is I see a lot of symptoms, but I take them as symptoms and I might see something, but it doesn't mean that it is exactly what I see. So it's very important for people to recognize a symptom, and it's just like a mental check, and then you just start to pay attention to see if there's a pattern of that exists. So a basic baseline is if something happens one time, it's just a one-time thing. And if it happens twice, it's a weak pattern. If it happens 3 times, it's a strong pattern. Now, I'm not saying 3 times over a year, but you're seeing something happen pretty close to each other. So if I'm seeing, somebody excessively spend money, 3 times in a row, I start to really take that symptom a bit more seriously. I also always, this is a rule that I offer to everyone that is out there dating. You truly, truly cannot fully and completely love someone until you have seen them in their worst and you know that you can still love them in that space. And that's a hard one sometimes because that may take a bit of time before you see a person under stress. But I've had plenty of experiences where I really liked a guy and then all of a sudden something happens at his job, or maybe I did something, I don't know, and he gets stressful and he might disconnect, or he might yell, or he might get verbally abusive. That is an instant. I won't go there. Because if I can't feel safe with him when he is under stress, our relationship is not going to go anywhere.
Agreed. I mean, one benefit to having this sort of psychic ability, this psychic force field, this mental edge is you can deflect, perhaps, for lack of a better word, wolves in sheep's clothing, because people can hide this sort of defect in their personality that you described, a terrible temper or an abusive personality. People can hide that for a very long time. And so if you have increased mental strength, if you're as strong as you can be mentally, and you've internalized all of those external loci of control, then your ability to spot the wolf in the sheep's clothing has increased a great deal. And I think that's probably a lost art among people in the modern dating world.
It is. I have all kinds of secret questions that I'll ask them. Like, for example,
wow,
what would be your favorite morning? What's your favorite morning? And the answers that I get will tell me whether they're a morning person or not. Some people want it. Like, for example, here's one extreme. I asked one guy that, and he says, I'd wake up and go surfing. And that was it. That was his answer. And I'm like, okay, that wasn't very fun. So he's not very creative. He's not imagining being with somebody. Surfing is obviously very important with him, and that's probably not something I want to compete with. Versus someone else who loves that question and they get excited about it. You feel the passion come out, the details come out. That's telling me that's a much more like-minded person with me because they love the creativity. They have an ability to fantasize. Fantasizing and daydreaming is a real important quality for a healthy psyche. If you can't do that, that's a big red flag. Big red flag.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me just ask you this real quickly. Then, if you're interested in longevity in relationship, and if fantasizing and imagining things is so powerful for your own psyche, then what would you say, for example, about mutual fantasizing, about having a project that you and your partner can fantasize about or imagine together, like having a farm in Connecticut or, running a ranch in Texas or whatever, no matter how goofy it is? What are the merits for that approach in maintaining and giving longevity to a relationship?
Oh, yeah, because it's so fun. It's playful. It's very important. This is another important thing to look at when you're looking for a match with somebody, is you have to have a like-mindedness in how you play together. So there really can be a lot of disconnect if one person may go play by, disappearing into video games, and the other one wants to go out for a run or go out hiking, and there's not a like-mindedness there. Those are off times when you could be together and bond together, fantasize together, create together. And in all of those creative details, you also get to have a little bit more information about who it is that you're choosing, or even who you have chosen. It satisfies that curiosity about getting to know something new about your person.
And plus, it seems to me that
another part.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
also wanted to say this really quick is very important is I always have a support system. So if I come across somebody that I am starting to take more seriously and I'm interested in, they go through my filter of, as silly as this may sound, they meet my dog. That's the very first person they meet, because I've come across guys who like walk in, ignore her, not very interested. You can kind of tell they're not much of a dog person. Okay, that's a check off the list. They meet my friends. I take them out into social situations and I watch their interactions. I watch how people respond to them. So I also have other avenues of people getting to meet them, so that also my close network of people can give me their opinions and experiences. So I'm not just working with only myself. I'm getting other viewpoints.
That's very interesting. I had this idea, for example, that we can use this as a gauge as to test. For example, let's say that your partner doesn't cooperate with your fantasies and your imaginings. Then this might be the sort of person who'll text you, but who might have other relationship problems with you down the road, like boredom. But if the person is irritated by your questions and is irritated by the fantasy and wants to change the topic, then this might translate to a partner who might not text you at all, or might abuse you through abandonment or something of that nature. What do you think about that idea?
Yes, I have experienced that probably more often than not. I hear quite a bit, you ask too many questions. And you know what? That's totally okay, because fundamentally, here's the platform for everybody. I like that about myself. I like a lot how curious I am. On the flip end of things, the boyfriends and more serious relationships I have had, what every single one of them have said to me at some point was that they have never been known so well. They've never been known so well, and it feels amazing. So I know there are people out there that really like that part of me. And because I like that part of me, I'm not changing it. It's the fuel for my life. It keeps me alive and interested and engaged. And so if someone sits in front of me and says that, that's an instant sign for me going, I am going to drive this person nuts, and he does not need to deal with that, and nor do I. It's not a right or a wrong. It's just a different. We're just different.
So here we've used mental power as a diagnosing tool, but of course it takes another kind of mental power to have the courage and the discipline to say, I'm going to permanently separate myself from this person that I've got my hopes set on. That's another facet of mental power altogether, and it's a lot harder.
Yeah, it's so hard. Yeah, the back end of things, who I was when I dated when I was a lot younger compared to now is a complete 360. When I was younger, I was a lot more narcissistic, not very connective and caring. I still was a very high communicator, but there were a lot of issues from my past and my childhood that really influenced how I experienced dating and relationships. So the back end of all of this, we all want to feel happy. We all want to be connected and have that love is powerful and limitless and vibrant. The bottom line is you cannot attract any of that or even receive that and handle that or support that type of love unless you can offer that yourself first. So I've been for the past 10, 15 years, and I will for the rest of my life, working with healers, developing my skill set. I have an accountability system where I am constantly growing and evolving on myself. And as I get rejected, as things don't work out, it's okay, but I have enough strength. I can risk. Like, I have so much strength to know that I am resilient, that no matter what that person does or chooses, I'm okay. I will be okay. I can handle anything. So I have that trust within inside of myself, and that's essential. A lot of people want to put trust in the other person. I trust that person that they'll never hurt me or that they'll never cheat on me. it's not about that. It's about trusting yourself enough to know that no matter what anybody else chooses, you are okay. You can handle it.
We can use this mental power and discipline to identify external loci of control and internal places of control as well. But it seems to bring to
Hmm.
mind the idea that there might be a locus of chaos, the opposite of control, where perhaps when someone was a child in school and was picked on, or perhaps from a cruel or inconsiderate parent, at some point in childhood we've had these. Perhaps some of us who've had a worse result in romance, we may have had the wrong attitude imprinted upon us in childhood. We're losers, we're ugly, we're this, we're that. And what do you think
Yeah.
about, is it possible to use mental power to go back in time, to identify that locus of chaos and to wipe it out, to begin to work with it somehow?
I would not really use the word mental power. I would just use the word choice. A lot of people, okay, here's a concept. It's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. That
Right.
as issues might come up, so let's say, for example, I'm a very jealous person. I've been cheated on a lot. I Facebook stalk, I Twitter stalk, I Instagram stalk because I don't trust my guy and I think he's going to cheat on me. Okay, so that's not his fault. Like he didn't create that pattern in you. That is your own pattern where the source of those belief systems happened way before this current person came along. And so it's a matter of taking that choice, making the choice going, this is not who I want to be. What do I need to do to fix it? And a lot of people, what they do, most people, is they will go around, they will talk to people, they will gather information, they might contact you for a reading, they'll read books. So they're feeding their knowledge really well. Like they might even start to really understand where those patterns happen, where they came from, and they can become very intelligent. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that is just the first half. So there are a lot of patterns that I don't care how much you educate yourself, it doesn't change. You just become smarter about the pattern. So there's another half of what needs to happen, which is the healing part. So it's the part of where I've had to work with a lot of specialists in different perspectives and healers where they've been able to take me to places deep inside my woundedness and child energy to create healing for me because I couldn't do that by myself. So right. There's another level that we have to go to where you take that knowledge and then you bring it deeper and deeper and deeper into your psyche, where wisdom is knowledge put into action. So wisdom is knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt you just are lovable because of who you are, not because you do this or you do that or you have the right body or you have enough money or you're smart enough, because all that stuff is just fluffy stuff. It doesn't have much sustainability because eventually all that goes away, especially when we're older. So it's about deepening that knowledge and taking it to a whole nother level where you actually have a skill set and you submit yourself to people that you respond really well to and that you trust, that have an ability to help you heal that core root woundedness that established those negative patterns in the first place.
Awesome. Well, I want to remind everybody that you can find Heidi on the internet at HeidiGoodrich.com. She just launched her website. You can sign up for her mailing list. And, of course, she does a really excellent 5-week online workshop. And we're about to take a 1-minute commercial. And when we come back, we're going to talk about internet dating and Facebook and a whole lot more. So do not go away. We'll be right back in 1 minute.
A new era in psychic services has begun. PsychicAccess.com. You can connect with our psychic advisors by telephone or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our psychic advisors are interviewed, fully verified, and accuracy tested, assuring you quality service. We're living in some very troubled times right now. More and more, the world's problems are affecting us on a personal level. You don't have to deal with this alone. Our highly accurate psychics, caring advisors, and talented mediums can help with situations you are currently experiencing and can let you know what the future may hold for you. All new customers get a free 6-minute reading. All you have to do is register. Why not visit us now and get a free reading at psychicaccess.com.
Welcome back. We have here with us Heidi Goodrich, and we're talking about mind power and romance. And so far, we've talked about a whole catalog of scenarios, Heidi. Now let's talk about internet romance and Facebook and things of that sort. So, well, let's just start from scratch here. If I want to get into internet dating, should I stop and ponder whether or not I'm fit for it first, or whether or not I need to prepare for it first,
Yes.
or what?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Internet dating is pretty rough. It can be very challenging. So before I encourage anyone to head down that pathway, the first thing I recommend is to get very clear and specific as to what your goals are. I know for people that are just coming out of relationship, or maybe they've been single for a while and they feel like dating again, I like to just encourage people to view the experience as just a way to get to know themselves. So they get to experience a lot of different personalities where they can develop certain skill sets of communication, setting boundaries, practicing the skill set of recognizing symptoms that could be danger symptoms. It's a skill. It's quite a skill to become intelligent enough about yourself to figure out what works well for you and what does not work well for you. And the kind of people that do not do very well with internet dating are the kind that don't have a very healthy relationship with rejection, because that happens all the time.
Sure.
There's a lot of rejection in internet dating.
Yeah, it's kind of brutal, It's kind of like choosing a puppy in a pet store almost, and the rejection happens at a very, very rapid rate. So I have to have a certain healthy type of ego in order to survive that tide of rejection.
Yes. Okay, so there's a very, how do I say this? Okay, I consider myself to have a pretty strong core sense of self-esteem. I can handle quite a bit. Not that my feelings don't get hurt. I definitely have areas of low self-esteem, but my skill set, I'm pretty resilient. I get back up onto my feet pretty quickly and get re-centered every single time. The thing is when you head into online dating, and because rejection is happening at such a fast rate, even someone like me, where I've had a lot of practice and skill sets, I start to plummet. Like, honestly, I can last about a week and a half, 2 weeks before where I'm having fun. There's a lot of communicating. There's some fun dates, and I've met some great guys, good conversations. But then there's a point where I start to feel myself like all of a sudden I'm noticing myself clicking on my inbox all the time to look, did he respond? Did he say something? I'm checking out all the messages all the time, and I start to find myself get very hooked on the attention, or therefore the lack of attention that might be happening as well. And I start to feel myself get off center and not have very much fun anymore. So it's at that point, I know that's about myself really well, I just stop, because that's not what I want to participate in. So it's very important to protect yourself. A lot of people, they don't define healthy emotional health very well. They think emotional health many times is just is being someone who doesn't have a lot of emotional baggage and they don't have a lot of stress in life. Emotional health is, first of all, knowing how to take care of yourself when things happen, but it also means that you have a lower pain tolerance. I used to have such a high pain tolerance. I went through so much, and I literally would stay in certain situations that were not healthy for me because I was so determined to master it where I wouldn't get hurt anymore. And then one of my therapists at the time said to me, Heidi, healthy people, they get out. They have a lower pain tolerance where they go, I don't want to deal with that, and they leave. And they don't participate anymore. So I find this phenomenon happening a lot with internet dating, that people just stay in it over and over and over, and they just keep getting stabbed in the stomach from all kinds of horrible communication. Obviously, the number one thing I hear from both men and women is, I thought we had a great connection, and then they disappeared. Where did they go? He asked me out, but then he never showed up. I never heard from him. Or, yeah, she was flirting with me. She had all these signals and things were great. We were intimate, and now she's not calling me or responding to my text. What the heck happened?
Yeah, very common.
That's so common, and I always have to bring people back to, it doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter what happened. What matters is that it did happen. And if it happened, you need to walk away. You need to start taking care of yourself. And you need to know that if it did happen, that's enough information to know that this person's not going to match very well for you anyway. I know a lot of people, they try to re-hook that person. And every time I go, listen, if this person is ignoring you now, when it's not even stressful, maybe they're just afraid to tell you that they're not interested, so they choose to ignore. Is that the kind of person that you want to have in your life, even when you're arguing? Because that's exactly what they're going to do to you when things are stressful. They're going to ignore you. They're going to have a hard time being honest. So if you're not seeing those qualities and behaviors in the very beginning when things are easy, it sure as heck isn't going to show up later on.
Let me ask you this, Heidi. I'm convinced there are certain people in relationship who, unfortunately, their mental programs are saying, hurt me. I expect it. And they communicate this to their loved one. I worry about that sort of person getting online because, let's face it, the online dating world is almost purely mental. It's almost purely psychic, you see. And in this way, I worry about these people getting on the internet where it's a lot easier for them to subtly send this subtext that it's appropriate to mistreat me. I am a worthy receptacle for your anger, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. You see, that's what I worry about most of all, because let's face it, there are a lot of predatory sorts out there, and a lot of them thrive on the internet. So we have to have some sort of self-defense mechanism, psychically, mentally.
Yeah. Well, the challenge about that aspect in particular is that many times those belief systems are very buried. It's a very subconscious belief system that is at the core root cause. So usually people that have that as a core root cause of who they are, grew up in abuse. They haven't been loved very well. So there's a core belief system that is actually choosing and attracting certain people into their world, but it's a subconscious belief system. So this is why it is so important to start to understand the symptoms of yourself first, and then you can understand them in the people around you. So me, for example, I do have a very high tolerance to stress in life. So I can usually tell, I know that about myself, so I can tell when I'm driving. I'm usually just a very calm, regular driver, like nothing, I'm safe, I go to speed limit, I'm cozy there. Like that's where I feel natural and But then there are times that if someone cuts me off or they honk at me or whatever, and I get irritated, and then I start to drive more aggressively, or I'm instantly reactive, and I, of course, say a few expletives in my mind. I know that's a symptom right there of something deeper going on. So the moment I recognize the symptom, I'm starting to trail it back to, okay, what's going on right now that you're not centered and balanced and figuring things out, like dealing with what you need to deal with. So when you're out there dating, you know, if you view every single person in your life as a mirror to who you are, you will get a lot of information about yourself. You know, who I used to attract when I was younger were very, you know, the bad boy kind of guys, the ones that didn't communicate very well. They played the games, and that's what I was attracted to. And then, of course, the nice guys finished last. Like, I had no interest in them whatsoever, versus now it's entirely reversed. So anybody I invite into my space now, the higher vibration, there's a lot of respect and honor and communication. And if it's anything less than that, then, you know, this is where we have standards. We have to have standards. We have to have standards. So many people don't have standards. So here's one thing you can do. This is usually where I start people, is creating the vision of what it is that you really want to experience, what kind of relationship you want to have. And you can even get as detailed as what it's like to wake up with them in the morning, what it's like to spend an entire day traveling with them in Italy. What would it be like to argue with them? What would it be like to cook dinner with them, you know, a couple nights a week? Imagine those details and what you feel like. And then you've got to create what I call the non-negotiable list. And this is the only list that I go by. On this list are the characteristics, the qualities that have to exist in order for you, yourself personally, work well in a relationship. They are non-negotiable. And this is a list that will change over time as you evolve and change, as you test those things on the list to make sure it's really, truly non-negotiable. So for me, one thing that was on my list when I was younger, I'm like, I have to be an athlete. I cannot date a non-athlete. It won't work for me. And then I'm like, okay, we got to test this out. So I dated a guy who wasn't an athlete, but he actually was active. Like, he would go out on hikes, you know, he would go exercise at the gym. And I found myself going, well, yeah, that's totally workable. That's doable. That's on my non-negotiable list. Being an athlete, that's negotiable. You know, some
Awesome.
other things, like, I have to have romance. I cannot survive in a relationship without romance. I cannot survive in a relationship without a high communicator. I cannot survive in a relationship with a man who doesn't honor and respect me when we're in our worst. So it's getting very clear and stubborn that you don't negotiate these qualities. And this is where judgment gets clouded. This is where relationships end up not working out long term, because people will have, oh, but they're this and they're this and they're so amazing and we're so fun and I've never felt like this. That all of that becomes more important, so they start to negotiate those qualities. And that's where people will start to get into trouble.
So don't let your partner weasel or wiggle his way out of it. Be like POTUS, the president of the United States. We don't negotiate with terrorists. All right, we don't negotiate.
Yeah.
This is non-negotiable. I think that's excellent. That's outstanding. Great tool for honing your mental edge there. But I also want to ask you in our closing minutes here about Facebook real quick, because it's obvious to me that Facebook is a special arena. If Facebook were an online kibbutz or commune, your Facebook page is like the place where your brain lives at, your psyche lives at. Any tips on Facebook behaviors?
Okay, number one tip about anything online really about any situation, but this happens most online through Facebook or, Twitter, all those stuff. Do not think that you actually understand the intent behind what is being said. So people a lot of times will say things or do things with a very specific intent, but it's received by someone else in an entirely different way. So you have to first and foremost understand that what you are reading and what you might perceive as your boyfriend's cheating on you or your girlfriend is flirting, and we can't overreact before we have the full information. So you might have a reaction, like, not that I don't have those kind of reactions initially, but I immediately start to go, Heidi, you don't know what they really mean. Go gather information, talk to them. Don't use technology to communicate issues that have depth to them, where there needs to be a conversation. And go gather the information before you really decide whether what they did or said is harmful or damaging or inappropriate.
All right. Well, Heidi, I want to thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I want to remind everyone again, you can find Heidi at HeidiGoodrich.com. You are doing some workshops here pretty soon, aren't you, Heidi?
Yeah, I have a 5-week course coming up online, and that's where I am going to go into all kinds of details to help you, like the details of symptoms, the details of communication, how do you magnify the vibrancy and passion in a relationship. And this is even great for single people. Like, I'm single right now, and I use these skills all the time to relate to the people around me. So it's a full, in-depth system from beginning to end that will help transform your idea about what to do and how to go about getting that.
Very good, very good. Well, Heidi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Very good. We'll see you later, Heidi. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Res Miranda. If you're having relationship, career, or life issues, I'm inviting you to experience what it's like to have access to professional, highly accurate psychics and spiritual advisors you can trust to care and help you. Register now to get your free 6-minute reading by telephone or chat. Get answers, get access, psychic access, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PsychicAccess.com.